Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and welcome to your writing workshop lesson for the day. The materials you will need for this lesson are a pencil, a student copy of your writer's notebook page 5.5, 5.6, and 5.8, which have been linked for you in the framework for today, your writing journal, and a copy of your draft. If you don't have these things, go ahead and collect them now, then come back to press play. Okay, now that you have all your materials, I want to review our objectives for this lesson. I will explain elements of persuasive writing. We will recognize elements of persuasive writing and how to identify primary and secondary sources. You will identify the primary and secondary sources for your editorial, list their credibility, and the information you're using from each. Students, you have been given a copy of your writer's notebook pages 5.5 and 5.6. I want you to follow along with your student copy and recognize that this modeled text demonstrates the elements listed in anchor chart parts of an argument. Look at the structure of this model. Do you see how the writer integrated research into it to persuade her audience? Follow along and make notations within your own copy by underlining as I point out the elements to you. I'm going to go ahead and reread this model, and then we're going to follow along as I list the elements. What About Water Bottles by Stella Grice. As I leave soccer practice, I toss my empty water bottle into the recycling can. I do the same after a game. Sometimes the can is so full that empty bottles spill out and blow away. I started to think about all those bottles. After learning from News Time magazine that the Americans drink billions of gallons of water from plastic bottles each year, I formed a new opinion. Sports teams should require athletes to use reusable water bottles. Players I talked to had reasons for using disposable bottles. It's fast and easy just to grab a bottle of water. They like the taste of bottled water. Besides, used bottles can be recycled, and just one bottle wouldn't make a difference. These are silly reasons. It's easy to grab a pre-filled bottle, but how much time does it take to fill a reusable bottle? I timed this at home. Getting a bottle ready took less than a minute. That's hardly any time at all. I did an experiment on how water tastes. I chilled both kinds of water overnight, and then I gave 10 friends drinks to see if they could tell the difference. Most people could not taste any difference. Only one person said that she could tell, but she incorrectly said that the tap water was bottled water because it tasted better. Saying water bottles can be recycled is correct, but the Bottled Water Council reports that just a third of all bottles are recycled. In addition, plastic bottles are made of oil. The bottles are filled in a plant that uses fuel. More fuel is used to transport the bottles to the stores. These uses of fuel cause pollution. The last reason that one bottle doesn't make a difference is just an excuse. According to Marcus Grant, author of Water, Our Precious Resource, it actually takes about 3 liters of water to make 1 liter of bottled water. We all must do whatever we can to use resources wisely. Teams should step in and to help people change their habits. If athletes use reusable bottles, that would make a big difference. Please ask your team to make a rule to use reusable bottles. And then she lists her sources. Okay. Notice in the first paragraph, the topic is introduced. And the thesis. This is their claim or argument. Sports teams should require athletes to use reusable water bottles. This thesis is strong because it's clearly stated and can have more than one opinion about it. Look on to the second paragraph. It lists reasons to use disposable bottles. There are arguments such as it's fast and easy just to grab a bottle of water. They like the taste of the bottled water better. And used bottles can be recycled. Just one bottle wouldn't make a difference. These are the opposing arguments, or the counterclaim. In the third and fourth paragraph, the opposing arguments are disputed. This is the rebuttal. This is the reasons why the counterclaim is wrong. If you notice in the fourth paragraph, the writer did their own research and said getting a bottle ready took less than a minute. Also, in the fourth paragraph, the writer did another experiment in which they had friends taste the water in order to see if they could tell the difference. Most people could not taste any difference. This is another rebuttal disputed by evidence or facts that support a position. The opposing arguments are disputed by evidence, facts that support the position gained from personal research. The writer took the time to research these ideals. In the fifth and sixth paragraph, the writer offers evidence for position from research sources. So they're offering evidence for their own position using research sources. The Bottled Water Council reports that just a third of all bottles are recycled. According to Marcus Grant, author of Water, Our Most Precious Resource, it actually takes about 3 liters of water to make 1 liter of bottled water. These are evidence that the author offers from research sources. If you notice, in the fifth and sixth paragraph, these are sources listed that are not the writer's own firsthand accounts. These are called secondary sources. Secondary sources include books, articles, or reports by someone who did research on the subject. The writer used primary sources when she tested how long it takes to fill a water bottle or whether people could taste the difference in tap and bottled water. A primary source is a document, interview, or information from someone who has personally witnessed an event. These definitions are very important to you, so I want you to take some time now and copy these definitions into your writing journal. Okay, now that you're back, another thing I want to talk to you about is credibility. Credibility means believability. If a source has credibility, you can generally believe it, but not all sources are credible. There are several factors that make a source credible that you want to pay attention to whenever you are researching. These include the person or organization that produced it. You want to ask yourself, when you're wanting to use a source, who is this person or organization that produced this information? Another factor is how the information was gathered. You can ask yourself, how was this information gathered? This will also help you determine if the source is a primary or secondary source. Another important factor to consider when testing credibility of your source is how old the information is. Ask yourself, when was this information gathered, put together, or published? The age of the information can really determine credibility, because if the research is a bit older, there may be newer, more relevant data that contradicts your argument. I want you to pause now and copy down this chart into your writing journal. That way you can reference it later whenever you're going over your own sources. Okay, I hope you copied this information down as it's very important. Besides selecting credible sources, you need to understand the source information. One way to be sure that you understand information is to restate it accurately for your notes. I'm going to point out to you some of the information that was in the source, and then how the author restates the information in her own notes. Pay close attention to her wording and how she restates the information. The information from the sources that the writer used stated that the total bottle of water volume increased to 12.8 billion gallons in 2016. The writer restated in her notes that Americans drink billions of gallons of water from plastic bottles. Notice that she did not state word for word the information from the source. This is plagiarism, and it's frowned upon and will not help you. You need to restate the information from your source. If anyone wants to find out more specific details, they can always reference your source that you cite. Another information in the source was that currently 33.4% of plastic bottles are recycled each year. Restated in the notes for the writer that the writer will use said just a third of all bottles are recycled. 33.4 is about a third. So the author restated this information in her own words. Another information from the source is that companies use 1.39 liters to make 1 liter of bottled water. In addition to 2 liters are required in the production of the plastic bottle. So the author went ahead and restated this in her own words instead of copying word for word. It takes about 3 liters of water to make 1 liter of bottled water. Whenever you're copying information or you're restating information from a source, you do not want to copy this information directly. This is basically stealing someone else's ideas. However, you can restate it in your own words in order to make sense and to persuade your readers. You are going to use Writer's Notebook, page 5.8, to classify and list your sources, evaluate their credibility, and demonstrate understanding by restating information. You can use the model provided on the previous slide for you, and you can also reference Writer's Notebook 5.6 to use an example for the pattern to your work. You will list your information that you are using from your source and then restate the information for your notes. Remember, you do not need to do an enormous amount of research for this editorial. You need to have at least 3 to 4 strong facts to support your opinion. After completing this, follow instructions to turn the copy into your teacher. Don't forget to reference your notes and also the model provided for help. Have a great day.